Do you ever find yourself standing in a room, absolutely certain you said something, only to be told with such conviction, such pity, that you're misremembering again? I'm not talking about the simple act of forgetting where you put your reading glasses. I'm talking about a deeper, more corrosive doubt, a feeling that your own mind, the very last bastion of your sovereignty, is actively betraying you. Statistics will tell you that 1 in 10 people over the age of 60 will experience some form of psychological abuse. I'll tell you that statistic is laughably low because most of the victims don't even know they're victims. They just think they're losing their marbles. This isn't about memory loss. This is about a crime. It is a psychological burglary where the thief doesn't just take your confidence, they replace it with a warped mirror and convince you the distorted reflection is your own true face. They call it gaslighting now, a tidy, clinical little term for a particularly nasty form of mental sabotage. In my line of work, we just called it breaking someone. And let me tell you, the most effective interrogations weren't the ones with bright lights and shouting. They were the quiet ones, the ones where you gently, systematically dismantled a person's reality until they were willing to believe whatever you told them, just for a moment of certainty. The good news is, you can recover. The bad news? It's not a feel-good journey of self-discovery. It's a forensic investigation into your own mind. It's a 90-day protocol to reclaim a crime scene. Forget what the self-help gurus tell you. Recovery isn't a straight line to happiness, it's a staggered, difficult process of evidence gathering. And today, I'm giving you the case file. This is the 90-day protocol. Not a therapist's guide, but a detective's. It's for anyone who feels like a stranger in their own head. Because the first step to solving any case is admitting a crime has been committed. Have you ever felt a profound sense of relief when someone canceled plans, simply because it saved you the anxiety of potentially saying or doing the wrong thing? How long has that been your normal? Think about it. We're going to start the clock today, on day 1. All right. Days 1 through 30. This first month is not about fighting back. It's not about confrontation, and it's certainly not about getting an apology. Anyone who tells you otherwise is a fool. Trying to confront a gaslighter in this initial stage is like showing your hand to a card cheat before the first bet. You will lose. This phase has one name and one purpose only: securing the scene. When my team arrived at a crime scene, our first job wasn't to chase suspects, it was to tape it off. You stop anyone from coming in and contaminating the evidence. You stop the victim, in this case, you, from bleeding out. Your mind is the crime scene, and it's been contaminated for weeks, months, or even years. First, safety establishment. This means creating distance. It might be physical distance, but more often it's emotional and digital. Let me tell you about a case. Margaret, a lovely woman in her late 70s, sharp as a tack. Her son had been subtly convincing her she was developing dementia, moving her keys, changing appointments in her calendar, then sighing with that patronizing tone. "Oh, Mom, you forgot again." He was after her estate. Our first move wasn't to accuse him. It was to get Margaret a new phone and instruct her to let all his calls go to voicemail for 2 weeks. He couldn't plant new seeds of doubt if he couldn't talk to her. This small act of creating a communication firewall was the first brick in her new foundation. For you, this might mean muting someone on social media, putting their text alerts on silent, or simply being too busy for that daily phone call that always leaves you feeling confused and small. Next, reality anchoring. Your sense of reality has been systematically eroded. You need to build it back, piece by piece, using indisputable facts. Get a simple, physical notebook. Not a computer file, not a phone app, a pen and paper notebook. A $5 spiral notebook is your most important tool for the next 30 days. In it, you will write down events. Not feelings, not interpretations. Just events. Tuesday, 10:15 a.m. I said I would pick up the dry cleaning. He said I never mentioned it. Wednesday, 8:00 p.m. She said I was being too sensitive for getting upset when she called my cooking barely edible. This isn't a diary of your emotions, it's a detective's logbook. It's evidence. In psychology, they talk about creating an external locus of control, a point of reference outside your own compromised mind. This notebook is your external hard drive for reality. When you feel that wave of doubt, you don't argue with it. You open the book and read the facts. Finally, support system activation. But you must be ruthless here. You are not looking for a sympathetic ear. You are looking for a reliable witness. A gaslighter isolates you by making you feel like no one else would understand or believe you. You need to find one person, just one, to start, who you can call and say, "Here's what happened. Am I crazy?" And their immediate response is, "No, you're not." It's not about finding someone who will hate the other person with you. It's about finding someone who will validate your perception of reality without question. Have you ever noticed how a skilled manipulator will often subtly criticize your most grounded and confident friends? That's not an accident. They are preemptively discrediting the witnesses for your defense. Who in your life does your abuser seem to dislike for no good reason? That's probably the first person you should call. Now we need to talk about the most critical element of this first month. It is an insight that doesn't come from a textbook, it comes from sitting across from hundreds of people in small, windowless rooms. The most dangerous part of a gaslighting operation isn't the manipulator. It's the echo they install inside your head. I call it the interrogation room of the mind. A skilled manipulator knows they don't have to be present to do their work. After a while, you do it for them. They build a little interrogation room in your mind, furnish it with your deepest insecurities, and hand you the script. You become your own interrogator, relentlessly questioning your every motive, memory, and feeling. Let me tell you about a con man we were tracking. Name of Silas. He didn't just manipulate his marks, he turned them into self-flagellating disciples. He'd spend a month convincing a wealthy widow she was a brilliant, undiscovered artist. Then he'd subtly introduce the idea that her distrustful nature, planted by her jealous children, was the only thing holding her back from greatness. Soon, she wasn't just defending him to her family, she was berating herself in her own mind. Every time a flicker of doubt about Silas crossed her mind, a voice, his voice, wearing her face, would pop up and say, "There you go again, being suspicious. This is why you'll never be happy." He could be halfway across the country, and she'd still be in that room, doing his job for him. Your primary task in this phase of abuse recovery is to identify that voice. You must learn to distinguish between your authentic thoughts and the implanted directives of the abuser. The psychological term for this is introjection. It's a fancy way of saying you've swallowed their voice and it's now speaking from your gut. Your job is to recognize it as a foreign entity. It's a parasite. Here's your practical exercise. The Thought Arrest Protocol. For the next week, your mission is to catch that voice in the act. When you make a small mistake, like spilling coffee, and the voice in your head says, "You're so clumsy. You can't do anything right. I want you to mentally, or even physically if you're alone, hold up a hand and say, 'Stop.' Then you correct the record out loud. 'I spilled some coffee. It's an accident. I will clean it up.' You are cross-examining your own internal monologue. You're objecting to the prosecution. The implanted voice speaks in exaggerations and absolutes. You always mess things up. You're too sensitive. Nobody else would put up with this. Your voice, your authentic voice, speaks in specifics and facts. I made a mistake. That comment hurt my feelings. I deserve to be treated with respect. When was the last time you forgave yourself for a simple mistake without a long, internal lecture about your character flaws? If you have to think about it for more than a few seconds, you've got an internal interrogator on the payroll. This month is about firing them. Welcome to your second month. Days 31 through 60. If the first month was about triage and securing the scene, this month is about forensics. We're re-examining the evidence. Now that the area is secure and the contamination has stopped, you can begin to analyze what actually happened. This is where the real mental health healing begins, because it's not just about feeling safe, it is about understanding the mechanics of how your safety was compromised in the first place. This phase is built on 3 pillars: cognitive restructuring, boundary reinforcement, and identity reclamation. It sounds like a mouthful, but it's just detective work. First, cognitive restructuring. This is a clinical term for challenging the lies you've been told and have started to tell yourself. Your brain has been trained to run on a corrupted software program that defaults to self-blame and doubt. We need to debug the code. Using the logbook you started in Phase 1, I want you to perform a simple 2-column exercise. On the left side of a page, write down a recurring thought that plagues you. I am too sensitive. On the right side, you will act as a defense attorney and write a rebuttal based on the evidence in your logbook. On Tuesday, my partner made a joke about my weight in front of friends. My log says I felt humiliated. A feeling of humiliation is a standard human response to public ridicule. It is not evidence of oversensitivity, it is evidence of a boundary violation. This isn't about positive affirmations. This is about building a logical, evidence-based case for your own sanity. The science behind this is simple. Our brains create neural pathways that become stronger with repetition. For months, you've been strengthening the pathway that says, I am wrong. This exercise actively forges a new pathway, one that says, my response was logical based on the circumstances. Do this for one core belief every single day for this month. It will feel unnatural at first. That's because you're paving a new road in a dense forest. Keep walking it. Next, boundary reinforcement. Boundaries are not walls. They're fences with gates. You decide who comes in and when. A manipulator despises boundaries because they interrupt their access to you. During this phase, you will practice setting small, low-stakes boundaries in your daily life. Start with a telemarketer. Instead of awkwardly trying to get off the phone, say a simple, firm, I am not interested. Please remove me from your list, and hang up. No apology, no explanation. Try it at the grocery store. Someone cuts in line. Excuse me, the line ends back there. They might get angry. That's fine. Their reaction is their problem. Your job is to state the boundary clearly and calmly. This is practice. You are building the muscle you'll need for the bigger conversations. The goal is to separate your action, setting a boundary, from the other person's emotional reaction. You are not responsible for their feelings about your fence. Finally, identity reclamation. An abuser works by shrinking your world until they are the only thing in it. They subtly discourage hobbies, friendships, and interests that don't involve or benefit them. This month is about finding your way back to you. I want you to make a list of 3 things, just 3, that you loved to do before this person dominated your life. Was it gardening, painting, listening to a certain type of music, a weekly walk with an old friend? This month, you will schedule and execute one of those activities each week, non-negotiable. If the internal interrogator starts up, this is selfish. You should be doing something productive. You recognize it, thank it for its opinion, and go do your activity anyway. You're not just reclaiming your time, you reclaiming the parts of your identity that were pushed aside to make room for the abuser's narrative. What is one hobby or interest you've let go of that you once loved? What's the first small step you could take this week to reintroduce it into your life? We're still in the 2nd month, but I want to add another layer to this forensic work. This is my own protocol, something I learned from watching how seasoned criminals cover their tracks. I call it active evidence collection. The logbook we started is passive. It records events after they happen. Active collection is about seeking out and documenting proof of your own competence and sanity in real time. The gaslighter has spent ages creating a mountain of false evidence to prove you are incompetent, forgetful, and unstable. We are now going to build a bigger, better mountain of evidence to the contrary. This is a crucial part of the trauma recovery process because it's not enough to intellectually reject their narrative, you have to viscerally experience your own reliability. Let's take the case of Frank. Frank was a former partner of mine on the force, a brilliant detective. He got involved with an informant who was a master manipulator. She had him convinced he was a washed-up, paranoid old man, that his instincts were shot. She'd feed him bad intel, and when the bust went sideways, she'd say, "See? I told you it was risky. You just don't listen like you used to." He was on the verge of taking early retirement. To pull him back, I gave him a simple assignment. I told him to take on a small personal case. His neighbor's cat had gone missing. I told him to work it like it was the most important case of his life. Interview other neighbors, check the security cameras at the corner store, put up posters, check with the local shelters. He found the cat in 48 hours, trapped in a garage a few blocks away. It wasn't about the cat. It was about giving him a tangible, undeniable victory. It was a piece of evidence that said, your skills are still sharp, your instincts still work. So, here's your assignment for the rest of this month. First, the competence log. Every single day at the end of the day, you must write down 3 things you did successfully. And I don't want to hear that you didn't do anything. Did you make the bed? Write it down. Did you pay a bill on time? Write it down. Did you navigate to a new doctor's office without getting lost? Write it down. The manipulator trains you to focus only on your perceived failures. This exercise forces your brain to acknowledge the data stream of your daily successes, no matter how small. It feels ridiculous at first. Do it anyway. This log is the cornerstone of the case you're building in your own favor. Second is the reality checking system. Before making a decision that you've been conditioned to doubt, you're going to run a check with your one reliable witness, the person we identified in Phase 1. For example, if your gaslighter says, "Are you sure you want to wear that? It's a bit much, don't you think?" And you feel that familiar spiral of self-doubt, you're going to take a picture of the outfit, send it to your trusted friend and say, "Honest opinion." Their simple, "looks great," is another piece of external verifiable data. This isn't about needing permission. This is about calibrating your own compass against a true north until you can trust your own readings again. It's like using a spotter at the gym. It doesn't mean you weak. It means you smart enough to have support when you lifting something heavy. Have you noticed how your memory of your own achievements has faded, while your memory of your mistakes feels crystal clear? This isn't a coincidence, it's a strategy. Your new strategy is to be a more diligent record keeper. We've arrived at the final phase of this protocol. Days 61 through 90. If the first month was about locking down the crime scene and the second was about analyzing the evidence, this third month is about rebuilding the precinct. It is about taking what you've learned and using it to construct a future that is not just safe, but fortified. This isn't about erasing what happened. Scars are a map of where you've been. This is about making sure you never have to travel that same road again. The 3 pillars of this phase are trust rebuilding, relationship evaluation, and future protection. This is where you transition from victim to survivor, and from survivor to a damn hard target. First, trust rebuilding. And let me be clear, I'm not talking about rebuilding trust with the person who hurt you. In 99% of cases, that is a fool's errand. I'm talking about rebuilding trust in your own judgment. For months, your gut instinct has been screaming at you and you've been told it's a liar. Now you have to learn to listen to it again. Here's the exercise. The low-stakes intuition test. When you meet someone new or you're in a new situation, pay attention to the very first flicker of feeling you get in your gut. Not your analytical thoughts, but the physical sensation. Does your stomach tighten? Do your shoulders tense up? Or do you feel a sense of ease? Don't act on it. Just notice it and log it in your notebook. Met the new bank teller. Seemed friendly, but I felt a knot in my stomach. Over time, you'll start to see a pattern. You'll see that your gut was often right long before your brain caught up. You're retraining yourself to treat your intuition not as a symptom of anxiety, but as a valuable intelligence source. Next, relationship evaluation. It's time to run a full audit on the people in your life. A manipulator rarely works alone. They have enablers, witting or unwitting. These are the people who say, "Oh, he doesn't mean it like that." Or, "You're both just under a lot of stress." They are the bystanders who normalize the abuse. I want you to make a list of the key people in your life. Next to each name, write down how you feel after you interact with them. Energized, drained, calm, anxious. Be brutally honest. This isn't about cutting everyone out of your life. It's about identifying who belongs in your inner circle, who belongs on the periphery, and who needs to have their visitation rights revoked entirely. This is your precinct. You decide who gets a security pass. Finally, future protection. This is about creating a personal security protocol. You need to have pre-scripted, memorized responses for when your boundaries are tested. Let's say you have a family member who always undermines you with backhanded compliments. Your pre-written script might be a calm, simple, "What did you mean by that?" And then you wait in silence. An interrogator knows that silence is power. It forces the other person to either explain their hostile intent or to backpedal furiously. Another example. If someone says, "You're being too sensitive," your go-to response is, "Whether I am or not, this is how I feel." It's a non-negotiable statement of your internal reality. You aren't arguing the premise, you are stating a fact. These scripts are your firewalls. Practice them in the mirror until they feel natural. What is one boundary you know you need to set, but you've been afraid to? What would be a simple, calm, 10-word sentence you could use to enforce it? One final thought. A warning sign. There's a difference between a difficult case and a case that's over your head. You can be the best detective in the world, but sometimes you need to call for backup. You need to know when a situation requires specialists, forensics, a SWAT team, or, in this case, professional help. This 90-day protocol is a powerful tool for rebuilding your foundation, but some damage goes deeper than a cracked foundation. Sometimes, the entire support structure has been compromised by prolonged psychological abuse, and that's when self-guided recovery isn't enough. You need to bring in an engineer. So, when do you call for backup? The first red flag is pervasive dissociation. This is more than just feeling distracted. It's a persistent feeling of being detached from your own body or your life, like you're watching a movie instead of living it. If you find yourself frequently zoning out, losing track of large chunks of time, or feeling like you or the world around you isn't real, that's a signal that your brain is using an extreme coping mechanism to handle overwhelming trauma. This is not something to push through on your own. The second warning sign is unmanageable somatic symptoms. This means your body is keeping the score in a way that's debilitating. Chronic, unexplained migraines, severe digestive issues that flare up with stress, constant, grinding fatigue that doesn't improve with rest, panic attacks that feel like you're having a heart attack. Your body is sending up a flare. It's telling you that the stress load has exceeded its capacity to function normally. While journaling and grounding exercises can help, this is often a sign that the trauma is lodged deep in your nervous system, and it requires a specialist, like a trauma-informed therapist, to help you safely release it. Finally, and this is the most important, thoughts of harming yourself or others. This is non-negotiable. It is the big, red button. It is the 5-alarm fire. If you find your thoughts turning to suicide as an escape, or you're having fantasies of revenge that feel increasingly real, your situation has moved beyond the scope of this protocol. That is the moment you pick up the phone and call a crisis hotline, a therapist, or 911. It is not a sign of weakness. It is the single bravest and most rational act a person in that situation can take. As a detective, recognizing the bomb is too complex to defuse alone and calling in the bomb squad. This recovery, is the hardest case you'll ever work. It's personal, it's messy, and the stakes are everything. But remember this. You were the primary witness to the crime. You have all the evidence you need stored inside you. Your job is simply to learn how to read it again, to trust it again, and to build a case for your own truth so powerful that no amount of doubt can ever tear it down again. Be patient, be methodical, and be your own best detective.